So today we'll talk about negative externalities. And there you can see on the left-hand side, negative externalities are a cost imposed on third parties as a result of production and consumption of a good or service. So that's the important thing to remember. These are side effects. So it isn't necessarily, if you bought a product, for instance, like cigarettes and smoked them, and you had some kind of respiratory illness because of that, that is not part of the negative externality. That is the product that you chose to buy and use. The negative externality would be the secondhand smoke that might damage someone else's lungs, or the fact that you unnecessarily have a respiratory illness and you're increasing the demand for health services, which drives up the prices for everybody else. So, 3 examples, of course. These little icons underneath: factory pollution would be a negative externality. It harms everyone's health, especially those living around the factory. Sugar, for instance, sugar usage and corn syrup usage in food products. It harms the people directly, but then they in turn have more health problems, and that drives up everybody's healthcare costs. So that's a negative externality. And the simplest one has this little musical note, and that's, we don't think about these on a smaller level, but if you have, for instance, 2 houses down, people that like to listen to loud music all the time, they are purchasing the music and playing it, but you, of course, are having the negative externality, the side effect of losing sleep or having your dog barking all the time or whatever. So those are examples of negative externalities. And so there's the private cost, the cost of the individuals, the factory and its costs, the people who buy the product from the factory, or the companies that make the sugary products and the people that buy them, or the person listening to the music 2 doors down. Any of the costs associated with purchasing or making those things is all private costs. Then there's also the social cost. That is the cost to society caused by the negative externality. And so that causes a mislocation of resources because other resources now have to be used in order to confront the fact that there's negative externalities. More medical services are a result of the sugary products. Perhaps the air and water aren't as clean, and so not as many activities can be done outside because of the factory. Or the music, perhaps you can't get as good a night's sleep, so that, of course, is a cost to society along with all your other neighbors. And so that's a misallocation of resources and part of what we call market failure. And so the problem is, of course, is that the social cost is much greater than the private cost of the actual products. And so that means that there needs to be less of these things produced. So the product is actually being overproduced. And so on the right-hand side, we can see a chart, and this is for the price of cigars. And we can see that there's a couple different lines that are drawn here, but we still have price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis. And so the personal benefit that's going to exist is that of the actual people consuming the product. And so that's what this line here is for, MPB, marginal personal benefit. And we also have, of course, the social cost. And the social cost is going to be high for society because of all the other effects of, for instance, using cigars, secondhand smoke, the increased healthcare costs for everybody, and so on. So the cost is going to be much higher than it needs to be. And so there are a couple different methods the government can use. It could put a tax on the product, which creates a new marginal social cost here. It means that the price of the product is going to be higher, but notice that the quantity is going to be less than it originally was. It was originally over here, and now the new quantity is here. Now with what we call inelastic goods that people are addicted to, that are still going to want to buy it even if there's a price increase, can we make a big dent in that? No. But it will cause at least some people to decrease their use of that product, which is why quantity shifts over this way. And then we can also institute a negative ad campaign. So perhaps we convince people that it's bad to use these products, and so that actually causes demand, or in this case, it's labeled as marginal personal benefit, to drop as well. So we can cause demand to go down, and the same thing is going to result, we'll actually have a lesser quantity consumed of this particular product. And the goal is, of course, to make sure that society isn't as negatively impacted as it would be in the regular marketplace. So those are a couple things that we can do with negative externalities: taxes, ad campaigns, regulation would be another one, actually making certain things illegal. That's a little bit more difficult in some cases than others. And you can see in a lot of places they've tried some restrictions, like with sugary products. You've probably seen New York City, for instance, at one point proposed a soda tax that would be incredibly high. Local municipalities attempt to institute zoning laws like against noise pollution, noise ordinances. They cite people for disorderly conduct if they're making too much noise. So those are all things that can be done in order to solve negative externalities. And of course, it's debatable about what exactly works.